What's up, guys? Brady Fieler coming at you with a review for the new 3 Days Grace album, Alienation, released last Friday, August 22nd. There's so much I could say about my history with 3 Days Grace. They're literally a band I've listened to my entire life. I grew up on their music, and as a result, their first 3 albums in particular, I definitely have a very strong emotional and nostalgic connection to. That being said, their output after those first 3 albums has been a little spotty. So definitely check out the discography ranking that I just put up last week for this band, where I go into a bit more detail, actually a lot of detail, about all their past albums, so you can kind of see where I'm coming from with this review. Now, much is being said about the decision for the band to feature both vocalists on this album. You obviously have vocalist Matt Walst, who's been with the band since 2015, formerly of My Darkest Days. And then you also had the triumphant return of original lead vocalist Adam Gontier, and Matt and Adam are splitting the vocal duties on this album. The idea of this I fully support. I mean, 15-year-old me would be like through the roof right now, just being a longtime fan of everybody involved here, including Matt with his My Darkest Days albums. That being said, I was also a little bit nervous. My main worry was that the band kind of wouldn't know what direction to go in. Now, just for a little bit more context, I strongly dislike the first 2 Matt albums, Human and Outsider. But their last record, Explosions, to me, felt like the first instance of Matt truly sound like he fit in the band. Human and Outsider, to me, just felt like they were trying to shove him into the exact same mold that Adam took up, rather than let Matt's kind of own influences seep into the band. That's why you have several songs in those 2 albums where Matt just sounds like he's got this really forced grit on his voice, and he sounds a bit overly dramatic at times. So Explosions to me felt like this just massive sigh of relief, because it finally felt like the band was kind of molding around Matt's influence just as much as Matt had to do with the band. But now that Adam's back, the clearest direction for me would have been for the band to just go for that straight up nostalgic vibe of 3 Days Grace's early material. So my worry was, which direction were they going to go? How are Adam and Matt kind of going to fit into each other's styles a little bit more? And the singles had me a bit worried too, just that they were going to kind of go for too much of like a aim towards the radio and going for hits as opposed to writing, inspired, fresh songs. Mayday is a fun song. I like that as the first single. It just has such a classic 3 Days Grace vibe in its main riff and that absolute like knockout of a chorus. It's just so catchy. That's the biggest draw to this song for me, at least. The following 2 singles are what worried me. First, you had Apologies, which is just this like Imagine Dragons-esque pop rock song with these almost R&B leading vocal cadences in the verses that sound like a bad 2000s pop song, and a chorus where the vocal cadences themselves almost sound like they're tripping over each other. They just don't really have like a good flow to them. And then you have Dominate, which is also the opener on this album, which I fucking hate this song. It's got that stupid fucking chatter intro that leads into this riff that sounds like Walmart brand corn. The fucking mumbly verses on this song gives me like Midwest Jim Bro vibes. This is really random. They kind of reminded me of the band Flaw, but like worse. There's a god-awful chorus that sounds like Skillet. The song has everything that I didn't want to hear on this album. And yet, despite that, there's like this oddly tuneful guitar solo right after the second chorus that I actually thought was pretty nice to listen to, but it's just completely surrounded by absolute shit. Like, I have no reason to sit through this bad of a song just to get to that 15-second solo. But the band really hyped me up at the last minute with the final single, Kill Me Fast, which is one of the most blatant classic 3 Days Grace influenced songs on the record. The somber acoustic intro with Adam's really soulful vocals and the chorus with its more mid-tempo quality and the kind of repetition in some of the lyrics. You got the really relatable lyrics about relationship anxiety. I was so happy to hear this song, just because it gave me hope, for one, that the band would go for more of that straight-up nostalgic sound, which to me would have been the smartest direction for them. And I was thrilled to hear that on a bulk of these songs, they do really embrace that classic 3 Days Grace sound. Like in Waves, which might be my favorite song on here. This song sounds like a perfect 50-50 combo of 1X era 3 Days Grace and the second My Darkest Days album. Like right split down the middle. Like 15-year-old me probably would have played this song 100 times by now, and it's only been 4 days. The main riff, I think, could fit on either one of those albums, but then you get into the verses with Matt's really melodic singing over those tuneful, clean guitars, and it instantly brought My Darkest Days to mind. And then the chorus is just so massive and so climactic, and it has these awesome belting vocals from both Adam and Matt. I love the vocals in the bridge where Matt takes the lead and Adam does the backing vocals, some gorgeous melodies in there. Opposite to what I said about Dominate earlier, In Waves is exactly what I wanted to hear from this album, from Matt and Adam both singing on a 3 Days Grace record. Also, the power later in the album is a huge highlight for me on this album as well, which seeing a title by the name of The Power on a 3 Days Grace album, it didn't exactly ease my nerves going into the album. I was expecting this to be another song like Dominate, but I was very pleasantly surprised at what I heard on this song. This song is just one giant hook the entire time. It never stops being infectiously catchy for a single second. The chorus gave me these chilling flashbacks to the self-titled record, just in the way those moody guitars ominously kind of strum behind the vocals. Just the melodies and the stomp of that chorus too. It's really self-titled 3 Days Grace to my ears. There's also Death Wish, which with its 6/4 timing in the main riff and the verses gives an obvious nod to Time of Dying off of 1X. This song isn't quite as dynamic as the other tracks I just complimented. The chorus to me sounds a little bit flat, same with the bridge. But again, just that main riff and how those chimey, distant, clean guitars ring over it in the second stanza of it, that's so 2005. In Cold Blood and the closer, Another Relapse, aren't songs I like quite as much for reasons I'll explain, but the riffs in the songs themselves and a lot of just the cadences and stuff like that do really bring forth that nostalgia influence that I think the band was consciously going for a good amount of this album. So as you can see, there's a lot of great stuff on here that longtime 3 Days Grace fans especially are sure to love. But switching sides now, this album also has multiple glaring flaws for my taste. I've already singled out Dominate and Apologies as just two of the weaker songs on this record, Dominate probably being the worst song, I would say. I also really don't like the title track, though. The riff is decent, but it sounds a little bit sluggish. It's got that stupid toy intro, the toy noise intro. I don't know how to exactly describe that, and then it ends up being in the verses too. That was really cheesy. Kind of like Apologies earlier, the vocal cadences in the song in the chorus, again, don't really sound that smooth. They sound a bit rushed. The main line too, We're the Alienation, I find to be a bit corny. There's some unnecessary studio effects slathered on that kind of just feel extra. Matt's doing a lot more of that kind of forced gruffness on his vocals like he did on Human. For similar reasons, despite In Cold Blood having that decent main riff and somewhat of a catchy chorus, I'm not really into this song either. And for this one, the lyrics in particular are kind of what turned me off. This to me lyrically is a very Matt song, because with a lot of Matt's lyrics, he tends to use metaphors to like kind of as the basis of the song. Think like Car Crash off of Human. Also The Mountain, or even other songs on this record, like Death Wish and Mayday, especially in that bridge. I just don't like his use of metaphors. I find them to be really, really surface level, and they don't really end up having any substance to them. I think songwriting-wise, Matt is at his best when he's writing a bit more literally. Think like Redemption off of the last record, which is an excellent song, largely in part due to those lyrics. Lyrics like this song and others on here come off a lot less vulnerable and a lot more cheap. Something, though, that this album really lacks is a solid attempt at a melodic track. Never Ordinary, for one, is just this really lethargic, overly angsty, overly dramatic just attempt at trying to sound emotional. It's just boring at the end of the day. And then the true ballad on here, Don't Want to Go Home Tonight, this song sounds like it could have been like on that last Hinder album. There's some okay melodies and some okay vocal performances on this song, but like, this is 3 Days Grace functioning at their most butt rock maybe ever. Again, the lyrics on this song really end up turning me off. They just, again, sound really, really surface level and just like a cheap way to say what the song is truly about. And there's other instances of that too, like, again, the main line on the title track, "We're the Alienation," the airplane metaphors in the bridge of Mayday, some of the lyrics on Death Wish too, just, it ends up coming off to me as a little bit soulless when it comes to the album as a whole, because several of these songs kind of jump out to me as lyrically uninspired. Another Relapse lyrically is okay, and Kill Me Fast has some great lyrics. Ironically, the only lyrics in that song I don't like are when Matt comes in the second verse and says, keep in mind, up to this point, the lyrics of this song have been very, very, like, they've been a creative take on relationship anxiety, and then Matt comes in and he goes, I'll be sleeping in the bed we made. He goes, I'll never love again. Is it a coincidence that it's only Matt's lines in that song that I don't like? I'll let you decide. I will say, though, as far as the vocal balance on here, I think they work on a good amount of the songs, but they end up getting kind of predictable, too, at the end of the day. There's a lot of, I think almost every song on here has the same structure of Adam and Matt each get a verse, they each get a chorus, they share the bridge in some capacity. The vocal balance on each song is very, very uniform. That'd be the best way of putting that. And I don't see why the band couldn't have gone full on Adam for at least a song or two, and full on Matt for maybe a song or two also. Like, I don't know why they didn't have a song like even Death Wish, which isn't one of my favorite tracks on here. I think that song would have been a lot better, quite frankly, with just Adam in it. And then Matt, who in my opinion might shine even more as a melodic vocalist, you could have had more of a My Darkest Days influence track for just him to perform on. And that's a way that you could still play to both of these vocalists' strengths and arguably what the fans would like to hear more from both of them. There were some moments where I think Matt kind of did overdo that gruffness that he goes for, that he went for a lot on Human and Outsider. But honestly, I was a little bit worried he'd get lost in the shuffle a bit, but he really doesn't. Even on those more nostalgic tracks, I really don't think Matt being on them takes away from the nostalgia, and he sounds just as good as Adam on a lot of these tracks. Most notably, like I said, In Waves. That's my favorite song on this album, and it's just as much an Adam song as it is a Matt song. That song executes that balance flawlessly. But having songs with more vocal distinction, I guess, I think would have broken up the monotony a bit more. It would have made things a little bit more unpredictable. You could have played to both Matt and At's strengths a bit more individually as opposed to together. So I think the band missed an opportunity on that front. And yeah, there's some great songs on here that, like I said, if you're a classic fan of this band, you will absolutely love a bulk of the material on here. But to my ears, despite enjoying some of the tracks, the band still does sound a little bit directionless. Multiple of the tracks do feel genuinely uninspired to me, and it ends up being a pretty uneven album. Definitely not their worst, but far from their best. As a result, I'm going to score this album a 13 out of 30. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you've heard this album, definitely comment below your thoughts on it. Remember to hit subscribe for more rock and metal-related content and album reviews. Check out the description of the video for all my links, as well as one to my original music. And until next time, thanks again for watching. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.